Hello and welcome back. I hope you've all had a good lunch and you've enjoyed the stretching with Frank there. So our next session is with Dr. Martina Topic. She's a reader from Leeds Beckett University. I've just learned that a reader is an associate professor and she's only been promoted about a month ago. Did you see, Martina? So give her a round of applause, everybody. Congratulate Martina. Show her some love through the emojis.
Thank you.
So some general housekeeping. You can turn the subtitles on by pressing the CC over there. And on the right hand side, you can put your questions into the Q&A tab and we will be asking Martina all of your questions towards the end of the session. Martina will be talking about women, leadership and the PR industry in England. So what do women want? So I'm going to hand over to you, Martina.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending the session. I have to say, when I go to academic conferences, if I have 20 people in the room, I feel like a rock star, but to have 62, from what I see, that's amazing. I don't think I've ever seen that. So I am Martina. I'm a reader now since 1st of September, but as I said backstage, there was no celebration really because the promotion happened in the lockdown. So I only freaked out for not being able to celebrate, but now it's an old news. So I'm going to present a little bit about my research, but actually I even more wanted to ask you questions and see what you think. I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully it's going to work. Yeah, I think I'm sharing my screen now. Is it okay? Could you all see it? I hope you can see it. So basically the presentation I'm giving today was supposed to be a presentation of research findings from UPRERA project on leadership and women in PR, the lived experiences and all that. But then as it happened, I also spoke in a few other events and presented these findings. So many of you had a chance to hear it. And also I got triggered about this common theme that comes out of this research that I've been doing over the past few years. And there is a significant and meaningful difference in conversations with practitioners who work in the PR industry as opposed to the advertising or journalism. So I'm a former journalist, and my first research area has always been journalism. But then over the years, I got interested and expanded to advertising and PR as well. And then even more, I developed interest into the PR industry, which became my main field of research, which I never expected, but it's just how it happened because it's such a dynamic and interesting industry. And speaking with practitioners in PR industry is significantly better experience than trying to chase journalists and get them to talk to me. But what I noticed in this research across 3 industries is that in journalism and advertising, they don't talk about professionalization or recognition of the industry. This is something that only comes out in talks with PR people, PR practitioners. So this really started to trigger me recently, and I started to wonder why. So this presentation is just partially based on this previous research that I've done and that I've already presented a few times, but then presenting you basically and just telling you what my new research is. And hopefully when I release a survey in November, you maybe have some time to participate. But either way, I would be very happy to hear any feedback. So basically, when I was doing this UPRERA research on women in PR, I spoke to women about lived experiences, office culture. So, for example, social interactions, banter, who they talk to, how this works, and how these informal structures and informal things affect career progressions. That's what I'm mainly interested in, organizational culture and how this affects people. And then I asked about lived experiences, and I asked about the leadership styles and whether they lead differently or do they feel they lead differently, and how this works in this organizational context. But what came out of this data, which did not happen, like I said, in journalism or advertising or any other research, is this very strong theme of the lack of recognition of PR. So what women were telling me, and I just have 4 snapshots here on the screen, is that PR is seen as a bit fluffy and not necessary, that they also get excluded from decisions, from meetings, and just are expected basically to communicate decisions and stuff that they are not involved with. So which obviously makes the job much harder when you're told something afterwards, as they said. Also, they said some business owners, see PR as a waste of time, and a lot of the time it's more about making things look pretty. And then obviously that there is this fluffy notion of PR and comms in general, and that they are being called comms girls. So this is something that really came out only from PR interviews, not others, which really started to get me interested as to why. Why is there such a lack of recognition of PR? But then I also realized I actually spoke to women only because I was doing women research, which is part of my research agenda. So started to wonder who is excluded. Is it all PR people that have this issue, or is it just women, or is it some types of women who face this issue? So this is basically the research that I'm currently designing and that I want to look at as part of UPRERA project, which I'm currently designing to kind of start mid-October or beginning of November, and I hope that some of you will have the time to participate. So another thing that I'm looking at is basically you have all these women who say, oh, we are not recognized, we are expected to make things look pretty, we are not invited to meetings, and if we are invited, we are not taken seriously. So then I realized, but PR is actually a feminized industry. It has one of the largest numbers of women working in the industry. And I noticed and I found this because I started to review academic literature and practitioner literature in this to try to find an answer to a question, why? Why is it not recognized? And some are arguing that feminization basically brings wages and recognition down. And I found some warnings in the 90s when women started to join the profession more, that scholars are saying this is what's going to happen unless we do something about it, unless the government or whatever, or any positive social change happens. And then I noticed when reviewing all these documents that there is a lack of recognition of PR as profession, which is reported both by industry professionals, like in my research, and also there are lots of other academic studies that say the same thing, and they recognize there is a tension between feminization and professionalization as well, so that PR is not professionalized, and some are saying it's because it's such a feminized profession. So I started to wonder, would it be the same if it was a masculine industry like finance? But also, do men who work in PR feel unrecognized? Because I didn't speak with men in my research. It was only a women studies project. So this is something that really interests me. What I also noticed in this research, which I've done over the last 2 or 3 years, is that PR is often seen as a promotional activity rather than strategic management that builds lasting and beneficial relationships with their stakeholders, which I think PR is. I do see PR as very useful and very beneficial to society. For example, if you monitor equality campaigns, which I have been doing as a women studies researcher, obviously there is a massive contribution that the PR industry has given to women equality, and I was really shocked to realize that people don't recognize it. So I've been trying to present this, for example, to my students and the university to instill this sense of pride to work in an industry that actually contributes to the society. But it seems to be rather difficult because when you talk to practitioners, they say, well, yeah, that's what we do, but we are not always recognized. We are on this seen as promotional side, which I personally think belongs to marketing. I don't think that's what PR does. So I started to look now into this notion of profession, whether PR is a profession. And then I found this difference between the US, which has most of PR research being done in the US the most. They are the leaders in the field. So I looked there, and they do speak the language of profession quite often in the US, and there are some who openly advocate that PR is a profession since the 1980s, like this, like Jackson. And then I looked at the Public Relations Society of America, and they speak about professional development, accreditations, ethical conduct, and they do speak really a language of profession. There are some in the US who don't agree, but they do agree that it should move into that direction to gain trust, credibility, and increase reputation. One of the arguments why PR is not a profession is that it doesn't require specialized knowledge, continuing education, codes of conduct, and ability to enforce those conducts. So there is obviously an issue on these codes of conduct and enforcing them. But I would disagree with specialized knowledge, because we do have very well developed PR courses that do develop this. So it's a bit in between. So basically, when I look at this, also I found this notion of how PR education should be, and apparently it's very important part of professionalizing a field. So even in the 1920s, Bernays, for example, said that we shouldn't be just teaching writing skills and PR education, that we should also teach, for example, research methods and social scientific skills, which is what we all do in PR courses in the UK. I mean, I work at Leeds Beckett University and I know we do it, but I'm also an external examiner. I was for 5 years at Bournemouth University. I'm now at Wolverhampton Arts University of London. So I know across PR courses that I'm affiliated with, we all teach both practical and research skills. So the education is there. It quite meets the requirements of PR being a profession, but there is still this lack of recognition. Also, what is often seen as a way of professionalizing PR is requiring students to have a minor, so a secondary specialization, which many of us actually do. Many courses in the UK pair PR with either journalism or business or media. The only thing that is not being done is there is not often a separate department. So, for example, at my university, we have a department of PR and journalism, not just PR. But more or less, with some differences, it is all there. So then I looked at the professionalism in the UK context, and I found the CIPR as an organization, industry organization, also speaks the language of profession and professional standards. So they speak of membership benefits such as accountability, credibility, recognition, learning, development. You can get a charter status, which many practitioners have, and they also have this code of conduct. So it's all very similar to the US. When I was comparing standards and education and everything, it's very much there. But then when I looked at practitioners and their views, I found something very different from what is happening in the US. And in my research, I never just use academic views and academic literature. I always read popular books and practitioner articles and blogs and everything I can find to get so that everybody's views is heard and involved in my research. So I got really interested to find out that, unlike for the US practitioners, in the UK, many practitioners actually say that PR is a strategic function more than just a promotion. So obviously disagreeing with these views of businesses that came out in my research. But at the same time, they also criticize PR as a profession and say that it's not a PR, that it's not a profession. So I found some of the statements, for example, on this PR Moment blog, and I found some others as well, saying, what wouldn't you be allowed to do if you haven't got a recognized PR qualification? Would it be talking to the media? It would also mean top journalists could no longer turn to PR without years of study and training. So this is some of the views that I picked out. And you can see also what I've noticed is that many of these statements are actually from male practitioners who say that PR is not a profession and perhaps that it shouldn't be. So there is this difference, a really big one, in the way PR is seen in the US, where they either see it as a profession or they say it's not a profession, but it should be. So they advocate, they push forward, they try to do these things. But here the debate seems to be, no, it's not a profession. And then one female practitioner, is the only female one I found so far, said that people laugh at her for having a PR degree. So that's very, very different. So what I'm looking at now is why? If you look at PR courses, it's aligned to the rules of the profession. So second specialism, research and practice, offering placement. So we do all these things that we are supposed to be doing. CIPR is advocating for PR to become a profession. So what does it take in the view of practitioners for PR to become a profession? This is something that I'm really interested in. I would love to hear any feedback today, and I want to do further research to fully understand this. But also, the whole debate so far seems to be, I only found statements from men, which is fine, but I can't find statements of women. So what do women think? Is it a profession? Is it worth becoming a profession? And how do you gain this trust and increase reputation if you're not a profession? So it's basically, if we look at the existing information on both research and practice, so all the information I found from all sources, there is an agreement that PR is unrecognized. That there is this issue, of comms girls, fluffy PR, exclusion from business meetings. This came out very strongly in my research. It's not professionalized, so it's not seen as a profession, but it is feminized. So you have most women working in the field, which then suffers from the lack of recognition. And women particularly say this comms girl as a derogatory term, and this notion of expected to make things look pretty as well as a problem. So the context for women's work in PR seems to be that they work in a very, very unrecognized field. So what does it take for PR to become a profession, and how do we do that? And is there anything that we in academia could do differently, perhaps in your view, to help in this endeavor? And do you even want this endeavor in the UK? So it's my question, and it's further research. I will be sending a survey soon, and I hope you will have the time to participate. But if you have any feedback or any opinion on this today, I would love to hear it. So thank you for your attention. And I forgot to say many thanks to Google for slides, funky slides. I thought they're really funky. I hope you like them. I need to stop sharing the screen. Okay, sorry. I always forget about that. And then people talk to me and see themselves on the screen.
Thank you, Martina. That was really interesting, and
Thank
I
you.
love the
It's work
slides,
in
by the
progress.
way.
So
No, I love the slides, by the way. Does anybody have any questions for Martina? If you just want to drop them into the tab, and then we can
or
just
feedback
go
as
through
well.
them.
Any opinion would be very interesting, and I'll be happy to consider it when I design my research.
Yes, definitely. I have a question, Martina. Whilst you were doing the research, the first question is, how have you seen that things have changed in the last 2 decades? So attitudes towards women, but also the attitude of women in the industry. Have you seen a shift?
Yes, yes. I was asking, for example, about dress codes and expectations in terms of appearance, because this is something I found in the old literature as an issue. And I always, when I start research, do a really big literature review to see everything that is known and then monitor trends. And they did say as a positive thing that there is less expectation on a personal appearance, that it's no longer gendered. So in the past, some very senior women said, I know what you mean when you ask me this. In the past, I had to wear skirts and, big heels and look in a particular way. But nowadays, it's just to be smart when you go and meet clients, which makes sense, I suppose. So that's definitely one positive trend. I've noticed that there is no appearance expectations anymore.
That's great. And then the other question that I had was around the pandemic and women during the pandemic. We've all seen lots of research around how the pandemic hasn't been the same for women across different sectors. In the
Sorry.
PR industry, how do you feel that the pandemic has affected women? And do you think we can undo that? Do you know how much they've been impacted?
Well, I was actually doing these interviews with women in PR last year in March and April and May. So just as we started this pandemic. And then it was really interesting, actually, because some of them said they really enjoy being at home and just not having to go to the office and commute and all these things. But then some said also that they lost some work, those in agencies, because of the lack of recognition of PR. So again, this lack of recognition, which keeps sticking me kind of and triggering me. Saying because some businesses just don't recognize the importance of communication and how much we bring, actually, especially in the time of pandemic. But then some others said, well, I actually got more work than ever because some businesses do recognize it. And funnily, they obviously made a joke and said, well, not every business owner is an idiot, who don't recognize the PR. So I heard those comments as well. But so it was a bit in between. Some lost work. So it depends kind of who you work for. But on a personal level, there was a worry at the time that some women will lose jobs because many women are freelance anyway. So how this is going to affect them. But I can only ask about that now when I start the research again, because all this time since last year I've been writing and disseminating.
And also,
I think there will be an effect.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I guess it probably depends a lot on the personal situation somebody is in. So whether it's a male or a female, but If they've got caring responsibilities, for example, that will probably impact them much more than if they haven't got some of those things, but there are also their issues as well.
Yeah.
We have a question coming in from Emma. So Emma Wanacott has asked, have you seen any changes in the industry as PR moved to more digital channels?
Not really. The only thing I've heard was that there is more workload because of it. Because in the past you would do your job, building relationships, doing the communications, all this stuff, but now you also have to do the social media. So this is something I heard, even though in journalism in particular, they complained about this, saying that it's been obnoxious and that they work non-stop because they have to post news on social media. But in PR, they say the same, that the job role basically got expanded with the digitalization, but this wasn't always followed with an increase in staffing.
Yeah.
You don't have more employees because you have more work. So it did increase workloads quite a lot. And women did speak a lot about long working hours and expectations of networking after work. So this runs across all three industries, that there is a long working hour culture. So I've been starting to ask as well, why do we work as much as we do? Do we need to work this much?
Yeah, I think we should all start a 4-day working week movement.
That would be nice.
Show us some emoji love, everybody, if you agree with that. And that doesn't mean we do 5 days worth of work in 4 days. It means we just do 4 days worth of work.
But you just said it's really interesting because that's what often happens. You work 4 days, for example, and then you end up doing so much work squeezing in.
Yeah. And I guess
I hope that doesn't happen.
I think lots of comms heroes will also they'll relate to this, but the amount of work you have to do before you go on a holiday and after, it's like your work, you're making up that work. I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to ask a question that Sophia Howard had asked. So Sophia asks, do you think the view of PR as a fluffy, mostly female profession has been heightened by its representation in media? So Sophia says that when she studied PR at university, the image of the industry was that many associated it with things like Ab Fab, Sex and the City.
Yeah, media do have an interest, unfortunately, and I admit as a former journalist, I used to be very proud of my journalism career, the fact I worked in 3 countries, I created so many scandals, took the government down in 1 country, but I developed a cognitive dissonance because sometimes we do act as a profession of sociopaths. I mean, the way PR people get treated by journalists. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that there is this notion. I've seen some works in the academia, some Australian scholars are particularly researching the representation of PR in popular culture. And you have this notion of men in suits doing politics for the White House, and being very, very serious, but also very manipulative and very sleazy, like people who lie and manipulate. You never see PR as doing community work or cleaning the streets or doing all this charity stuff. Students don't know, for example, until they come now to the 2nd year to me that, there is so much equality campaigning in PR and there is so much they do. So there is definitely a problem with the media, definitely. And this is something, like I said, I'm trying to tackle in my classes when I tell my students, like, this is all the good stuff PR does. Be proud of your field and don't let people who don't know better tell you anything different. But there is definitely a problem of reputation. And this Sex and the City, this slutty notion of, this slutty woman who just go to parties, drink and, sleep around. I mean, I'm sure there are women like that, and that's fine. Everybody should be allowed to do what they want, but it shouldn't be so stereotypical. And it shouldn't be even negative. So what if she sleeps around? I mean,
and I guess
media is the problem.
In a different era. I think that's one of the things to remember as well. Some of those movies were made for a different audience, different era. The knowledge that we had now and the conversations we're having now, we weren't having decades ago. So I'm just going to wrap this up because I know we're running out of time. I want to say thank you, Martina, for sharing your insight with us. If people want to connect with you and learn more about your research, how can they find you?
Oh, here I am. It was me who crashed out. Sorry, I thought it was you.
No, it's fine. I was just going to ask if people want to reach out to you and find out more about your research, how can they find you?
Oh, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere, and also email. If you just put my name into Google, it will come up as well. So I'm online nonstop. I'm also one of those who are always online and who work nonstop. It's just I just can't help myself. If I see an email, I just have to read it. So
oh no, we learned in the commsHERO Rebel session yesterday that you need to set your boundaries. So thank you so much, Martina. For everybody else, remember that once this session finishes, once you're at a table networking, tweet a picture or share it on social using the commsHERO hashtag. We've got lots of prizes. I'm going to share a picture of my Sharpies from last year. So I won these at last year's sessions. So we've got some Sharpies up for grabs. There's daily dairy. I'm guessing that's chocolate, maybe, not milk. That would be weird. And then for those of you that have pets, there are pets at home vouchers, and there are also Amazon. There's an Amazon £30 gift voucher up for grabs. So don't forget to share your images with us all. And I just want to thank the sponsors. So we've got Red Kite Community Housing, Staff Base, Prezi. We've got React and Share and First Up who are helping make this happen. And then, of course, we've got We Are Resource and people like Asif Chaudhry and Lee who are all behind the scenes and getting things done. The next session is Naomi Jones, and she will be talking about ESG in practice. So go grab yourself a cup of tea and whatever drink, actually, of your choice, and join us in the next 10 minutes.